You're listening to the Align and Expand podcast. Join your host, Lauren Runyon, in conversations that will inspire you to intentionally create a life you love. Hi, Damari. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
I am very excited to be talking about money with you today. And I must first say, and probably everyone says it to you, I love that your last name is Gold and you talk about money. It's so fitting.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to give you so this is my artist name, a given artist name that I gave myself. Gold is my favorite color, and so then it evolved into my company, the Gold Standard Accounting and Tax, and then I was just like, you know what? It just flows, Damari Gold.
I love it. I kind of wondered it. I'm like, maybe not, but it's so perfect. It's almost like you created your own alter ego to step into, and you're like, I'm freaking Damari Gold.
I definitely did.
I love that. All right. So I would love for you just to introduce yourself to the audience. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and kind of, I love to hear how people got into it. I know you have a little bit of a story as to why you do what you do. So if you could share that with us, I would love to hear it.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to give you the fast rundown. So, my name is Damari. I am the owner of the Gold Standard Accounting and Tax. Most of my career has been spent in accounting, in probably about over now 12 years. I've been in taxation specific. And then I started my career long ago. Some of your listeners might not remember 2008, 2009, when the big crisis hit. I I was in an accounting department, left that, and then took an internship to learn taxation. And so that's really how my journey began. Uh, as far as my history is concerned, I am a first generation American. So definitely learning about taxation was something that was challenging, but I appreciated it and I think I enjoyed it because I like problem solving and I'm really great about connecting the dots. And so I think the appeal for me is that not one scenario is ever the same. So there's definitely always a lot of change, a lot to learn. Room for expansion and growth every time. So I say that I'm like a baby Yoda because in my industry, it's like you could have years. I'm over 15 years and you're still kind of a baby. so so it's been an interesting journey, but I appreciate the work and I love educating people because I myself know how difficult it is to understand taxation.
Definitely. And a lot of entrepreneurs listen to the show, and we are recording March 2nd. So I'm sure this is a very busy time for you. So I've been in total meltdown, just like even thinking about my second year of going into taxes. And so I know that everyone definitely appreciates the work that you do.
Yeah, I know, and that's what I'm so passionate about helping people in this industry, in this part of their business and in their life, because it is something that can make you feel very, overwhelmed. It can, bring out the hand sweats. So it's something that a lot of people resist, especially even talking about money is one of those things. And so I like to ease people into the process, just giving them a space where they're not going to feel dumb. Because to me, I don't think there's a dumb question. I just think that we're all trying to find out more and really educate ourselves and help us prepare for this process so that it becomes easier for us as well.
Yeah, I love that you said that because in creating an environment without judgment, because I was just having a conversation with my friend the other day and she's like, you really should probably get, an accountant or a bookkeeper this year. I'm like, even that feels yucky to me. Like that feels scary. That feels like I'm giving you my diary or something. And I'm not open about money, but I feel like you're going to be like, okay, Lauren, that's enough courses this month. Like stop spending money. What are you doing over there? Or that's not a write-off.
Yeah. No, and you're not alone in that. I work with so many online entrepreneurs, a lot of different entrepreneurs, especially women. I'm very passionate about especially women because I know that sometimes this can be a very difficult, vulnerable part of their life. There's a lot of feelings that come up, can be embarrassment, right? A lot of times we feel that, oh, the person's going to judge us like where we're at in life based on the money value. And it's just not the case, at least not for us, because I know what messy beginnings look like. I was part of that. when I started my business or when I started doing contracted work, and this was earlier on in my career, I didn't know, like, okay, what am I supposed to keep track of? You guys, maybe now you see me as I'm the expert or I'm the professional, but when I started out, I didn't know this stuff. I was like you, I didn't know. So I had to learn, and I had to, make myself open to educating myself and absorbing and understanding and doing research so that I can make myself be in a better position or understand more, align myself and my money. Because the truth of the matter is that your business and the way you spend is a direct reflection of you. And that can be daunting and embarrassing for people because it's like you see everything. I say sometimes, like, a little funny that I'm like the gyno for accounting. Like, I see everything.
I like
You're
scoot
nothing
down a
that
little
you're
further.
gonna show me.
Looks a little more.
Yeah. Like, there's nothing that you're gonna show me that all of a sudden I'm gonna be like, oh, shocker, like it's fine. Like, I've seen it. I've seen it all. So don't worry. Like, there's nothing that's gonna surprise me. Yes, you might need some guidance. Yes, you might need adjustments, but as long as you're open to that, then I'm always here to guide people and give them that safe space, right? So that they don't feel judged, and they feel okay to ask the questions. They feel okay to share the information and know that it's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to leave anything. I'm like a human vault. Like, I don't share your information with anybody, so you don't have to be embarrassed. And I tell people, I share this often, is I don't own a home. For me, my success or what I've wanted out of life was my business. And this is what I have. I owe 110,000 in student loans. Okay. I don't know when those are going to get paid. Maybe when, I don't know. I really don't care. But I tell those things to people because when you can make yourself vulnerable, and so that you understand that there is no judgment here, because I myself feel my own personal, what my idea of success is mine, and that needs to be the same for you. So I'm not going to judge you based on your credit score, how much money you make, what you spend on. I might guide you to spend a little bit better, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to judge you for it. So yes, it's time for all of us, women especially, to really remove those outer layers of protection and allow ourselves to be real about our money situation, the things that we want, and know that, every time we're going to get better. And so as long as you keep pulling them back on that, then you'll know that every time it will get better and you won't feel as scared or embarrassed.
So we may eventually get to the topic of the show, but I have more questions just because I know so many people struggle with something that you said, and you said something about having the student loan debt and the $110,000. And every client I work with, almost every client I work with, has either some kind of student loan debt or this hold that the money that they put into their education, if they don't continue down that path, they can't let it go. And they can't, like, it just is this hold on them, and they can't expand into what they want to be because of this, either the debt they still have or the money that they spent, and they feel like they're locked into that for life. I would just love your take on that, or your experience, even though that's not what you're on this show for. Like, that takes, you've obviously healed that for you to be like, yeah, I have $110,000 worth of student. If you didn't heal that, you would be like,
Yeah, exactly. Because you get embarrassed. But yes, you touched on a very, very good subject there, because I also deal with a lot of people that is such a huge burden in their life. Debt is such a huge burden. I'm not going to tell you that I don't think about it. Sure, I do, but it's not something that is stopping me from living my life and from doing the things that I want. Because here's really the bottom line, is that we can all make excuses for why we're not doing something, why we're
mm,
not living a certain way, why we haven't opened our business, or why we haven't done this or taken a vacation or so on. We could all, because we're so restricted on where we are in money, that I owe this debt. But here's the thing, that if that debt isn't going to go anywhere, you're just throwing pebbles at big problems. and you're not doing anything about it. You're still not living your life, but you're not paying off the debt, right? So at some point, you have to make a choice and say, I am choosing to understand that the debt is there. It'll get paid when it gets paid. Hey, nobody's knocking down your door asking for the money, then it'll get paid when it gets paid. And now you choose what you want to do with your life and how you want to live your life and what things you want to allow in your life, not focusing on the debt. You focus on the debt, that means that you're living for the debt. That's what you're
Mhm.
living for. And therefore,
Mhm.
your mind is probably clouded with, I have all this debt. I like, all I can think about is this, all this is hurting me. That, so that cycle will continue on in your life, and you literally won't do anything. You won't take action in any kind of direction because all you're focusing on is having that debt. And so it is definitely things that I've had to work on myself, and I still continue to work on it. Like I mentioned to you, I'm a first generation American. So there's a lot of survival ingrained in me, right? So a lot of whatever our first experiences with money have been, if our parents were always stressed out about paying debt and so on, then chances are you're still behaving that same way. So there is a lot of things that we as people have to work through when it comes to debt. But to put it in a way where, I know this might sound like cliche or a little bit extreme, but honestly, like, if you only had a year to live, like, would you care about your debt?
Right.
I mean, there is no guarantee. We really literally are not guaranteed to live another day, another hour. Like, you're just not. So is that going to be the last of your thoughts? Is your debt?
Right.
Not to say like, don't worry about it, don't pay them. Of course, create a plan, stick to it, create something that is doable for you, that you know that you're going to chip at it, stay consistent with it, because that's another thing. People fall off the consistency wagon, and this is why it creates more chaos in their mind about debt. But make a plan, stick to it, stay consistent, and little by little you'll do away with your debt. It's going to happen. It's just that you just have to take the time to, but understand, what do you want to be doing with your life? Because literally, if you're gone tomorrow, that's what you've been living for. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's a bit extreme, but maybe that might help some people think through that.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned this in the very beginning is what's behind that layer when you don't have that as an excuse anymore. Like what's really hiding behind that
That
why that you're not going after the goal. So I really like that you mentioned that in the very beginning.
Yeah, yeah, it's true, because a lot of us, I think, hide behind that. There's always excuses. We always have reasons.
Yeah. So you believe that we can have and create freedom at any wage
Yes.
by, I'm guessing, starting to create financial priorities. So how do we start doing that? And before we start talking about that, what does financial freedom mean? Is that different? Just like you define success is different for everyone, do you believe that financial freedom is different for everyone?
100%. Financial freedom, you have to define what the freedom means to you, because it can't be somebody else's definition. It just can't. Because then you're always striving for something that is somebody else's idea of what freedom looks like. You know, people sometimes will say, like, freedom to me means that I can buy whatever I want whenever I want. Here's the problem with that mindset, is that even people that are very, very wealthy, that could buy whatever they want, they don't. I mean, maybe they
Mm,
can waste the money, but they know, in business especially, that you have to track what you're spending, because you're not in a bottomless pit. You're not in a bottomless well of money that's just going to keep producing. Why do you think millionaires or people that win the lottery go broke? Why do you think famous people go broke? Because they're continuously spending without really tracking, without really paying attention, and allowing other people maybe to, or not listening to their accountant, or just kind of allowing other people to take care of something for them without really having, paying attention to it. So I think really bottom line is, What is freedom to you? What would that look like for you? Is it a vacation? Is it spending more time with your kids? Is it living in a different place? What would that actually look like for you? For me, I have a very in my characteristics, I have a very deep need for autonomy. So for me, freedom is the freedom of decisions and choices. And one day I can come into work if I want at 6 in the morning, or I could come in at 1 o'clock. Chances are most of the time I'm coming in late, but I can drop off my kids in the morning. I get to, go to yoga when I want, or work out when I want, or, have my lunch whenever I want it, go golfing when I want. So those are the freedoms I'm choosing. But here's the thing, that I had to make a choice. It's like, I'm choosing to do this, which the other half of that is I don't own a home, and at some point I do, but I live in California. It's the most
Hmm.
expensive place in the state. So, you know so there, it's a sacrifice. It's kind of like a sacrifice or a give and take, right? So it's a give and take, but my freedom to me means more to me than actually, feeling like I own a home, because technically you still have to pay a mortgage. So unless you buy it outright, right? So freedom to me is being able to make those choices, not feeling restraint, or like I have to be at a certain place at a certain time, and so on. um, but that's not for everyone. Not everybody feels like they can do that. Some people will start a business and then they realize they don't like it, or how difficult it is, and all that stuff, and they go back to working a 9 to 5, and that's perfectly fine. You just have to find what in that scenario works for you, what in that scenario is helping you feel good about yourself. And honestly, if it is feeling the security of having a 9 to 5, right? It's a security sense, right? Then that's what it is, and that's okay, and you can change your mind. So really, it's all a matter of what is it fundamentally to you, that freedom, what does that look like for you? And then the next part, right, which you asked, was how do we implement that? The number one thing that everybody and nobody does is they nobody wants to look at their numbers. Nobody wants to pay attention to how they're spending their money. I know, I get it. It can be annoying, it could probably be frustrating, or it could create certain sense of feelings in within you. Trust me, I go through them all the time. And here's the thing, that it's it's kind of like, what do they say about ripping the band-aid? Like, every time you force yourself to face the numbers, regardless of what it causes inside of you, regardless of what it makes you feel, you will become more strong, or stronger, every single time, because you're allowing yourself to look at the numbers for what they are, make adjustments, and then decide what you're going to do different. How you're empowering yourself by doing it, right? Because you trying to ignore it, or you saying I don't want to know what it is, I don't want to see it, is you crippling yourself. Because then you're kind of thinking, oh, I don't know if I could make this decision, I don't know if I could, so on, right? Like, make decisions for life. But if you're empowering yourself and you're saying, you know what, I'm going to put on my big girl panties, I'm going to look at these numbers, and regardless of what it is, whether I like it or not, now I see what I did. Now I know what I spent on last month. I know what I spent on this week. And now I can make adjustments in my life. The truth is that people get uncomfortable with that because they don't want to change. And that's just the truth. People don't
Mhm.
want, they want to stay stuck in the feeling of I don't have enough money. But they don't want to take a look at how much they spent, let's say, on food. Like, a tidbit I can give you is, food is one of the biggest things that we spend a lot of money on. Most people do, right? So I tell people, okay, if you're the type of person that's going to constantly eat out, stop buying so many groceries. Easy as that. Because chances are you're probably wasting money on groceries and not eating both places. Or if you feel like you can sacrifice, paper bag it for a month. Just see how that feels. See how that feels. See how, if you like it. See if you don't. See if you can stay consistent with it. It's just minor adjustments. It doesn't have to be this whole life crisis. Like, oh my gosh, I can't eat out this whole week. I have to eat. Like, I think we ourselves work that up in our brains. Like, oh, I'm so restricted. I can only afford. No, like, what's the big deal? Like, paper bag it if you have to, or don't. And there, make adjustments elsewhere. That's it.
Yeah, probably, like, just when you said that about having to paper bag it, what came to mind is when someone is on a diet or something and then they mess up a day and they're like, "Oh, everything's ruined." It's really
Yeah.
like it's not an all or nothing approach. It's like, okay, well, today I don't get to eat out, maybe Friday I do. Like make I like that
Yeah.
you view it as you can do a smaller approach to making changes with your lifestyle. So when someone does that, when someone is tracking their spending habits, do you suggest that they go back and like look back at bank statements, or do you suggest they just, take the next 2 months and they start writing everything down?
So what I normally suggest is a calendar approach. This is what I did when I was younger, and I continued to do it until my adult life. Now I have QuickBooks, and I mean, I'm very in tune with my numbers and what I'm doing. What I, but fundamentally, the calendar approach is very helpful because if you take a look at an entire month, right, and you write in all of your bills when things are coming out of your account, let's say, on the first, your rent or mortgage or whatever, what you write in all the stuff when everything's due. If you take a look at that week, just do it week by week, you see how much money you need for bills. So now you already know, you already can shave that right off the top of your paycheck or however much money you have, and so on. And then when you start keeping track of how much above and beyond that you've spent, that's where you can make adjustments, because we all have, now I'm going to throw you some accounting terms, but we have what's called fixed cost and variable cost, right? Our fixed costs are things that unfortunately we really can't change, which is our rent, our home, utilities, our vehicle, right? Things like that. Then we have our variable cost, which is all the stuff that the extracurriculars, if we spend on food, going out, whatever people do. So supplies, Amazon, we all love Amazon. Target, don't go to Target. um, so all the extracurriculars that we have, right? So at that point, once you're keeping track of those extracurriculars, now you have the power to make a decision and say, okay, last week I went to Target way too many times. I need to, kind of ease up. That's my cap, or this is, I'm good with where I spent, and next week I won't do it, right? If we take it week by week, it takes away from this whole, like, if I told you, Lauren, you need to save $30,000, or let's say I said, Lauren, you need to save $3,600 in the year. What's your first thought? Like, how am I going to do that? Right? Like, that's a big number, right? For people, it's different numbers. But if I were to say that, did you know that if you only save $10 a day, and that's what normally people will spend on eating out, it's probably more now, in 365 days, you have $3,650. And guess what? It just starts by $10 a day.
Mm-hmm.
Easy as that, right? In a month, you have $300. But if we can make those smaller increments, smaller adjustments into our lives, and we can implement those things into our lives, you'll see big results. You just have to focus on the smaller picture and what you're doing day in and day out, not what's going to happen in a year, what's going to happen in 6 months. This is why the same thing with debt. If you know you owe $10,000, split it up. Say, okay, how long do I realistically want to pay this down or pay this off? If it's 3 years, great. Schedule something for 3 years. If it's 5 years, schedule something for 5 years. Don't think about the time, because the time's going to pass no matter what. So
Mm-hmm.
just stay consistent, stay focused. And so that's why I like the calendar approach, because it kind of takes away from you looking ahead or looking behind. It's this week. This is what I'm doing this week. This is what I did this week. What can I change? If there's nothing I can change, okay, next week. How does next week look? Right? So it gives us a little bit of a look back, look forward, but not in a way that's overwhelming and just overdone.
And this is a non-negotiable step. Like, you can't create financial freedom without doing this.
I believe you can't. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because then you're still sort of guessing, right? It's like, how do you suppose you're going to pay something off if you don't have a plan? And then how do you create a plan if you don't even know what you're spending on?
Right, right. Creating clarity and
Yeah.
talking, like I always talk to people about having like a relationship with money, and if you're just ignoring it, it's not really going to like you
Oh,
very much.
100%. Yeah. Our relationship to money is probably another very important aspect to all of this, because I know sometimes I've worked with people where they say, like, looking at the numbers really upsets me or it makes me uncomfortable. And I understand that. I completely understand that. I have to look at my P&L, I have to look at my profit and loss, and I have to be like, damn, we spent way too much on this. Or like, okay, what changes can I make, right? So I get it. I get that it makes you feel uncomfortable. The thing is that even with that, why does it make you uncomfortable? What are the feelings that it's causing inside of you? For me, I'll give you an example of my life. It is the sense of security. I didn't grow up with a dad. I grew up as a first generation American. I grew up poor. My mom's constant survival, working. So does that create those types of feelings inside of me? 100%. 100%, but
Hmm.
I can identify them. So I know that it's creating that inside of me. How do I work through it? Well, you have to take breath work. I don't know, sage yourself, breath work, write it out, journal. But this is the relationship with money that I have. So what is your relationship with money that you have? When you're looking at your numbers, what does it create inside of you? Does it create the fact that you don't have enough? That what feelings come up? And write your feelings, because they're valid. They are, and it's just a matter of working through them. And relationship with money is one of the biggest ones, because that'll trigger a lot of different other parts of your life.
Yeah. And so many people don't even people who don't have as like significant of a history, like when you growing up with a mom, the single mom. A lot of my clients, single parent household or friends, where there is, that's really obvious to identify that your parent struggled to make ends meet, and that creates a lot of stress and an unsafe feeling. But people who grew up in a home that didn't necessarily have as much of that still have these things that they accumulated that are
Oh,
affecting their relationship with money.
so that's why I say, like, if let's say you did grow up with a mom and a dad, and let's say middle class or whatever, or maybe you were well off, what what was your first interaction with money that causes the same feelings, or that you're feeling the same feelings in your current? Because one of the biggest things is always like success, right? We were talking about success and what financial freedom is. A lot of what I find is people that have had like a dad and mom, and have had like a good upbringing per se, right? Like middle class, upper middle class. A lot of things is almost like I don't meet the expectations of where I should be, because my parents are here, or because my parents went from this to this, and I'm not meeting that expectation. Um, and in a retreat that I spoke at, a girl said, and it was very touching, because she said, my parents always taught me you can always make more, and I feel like such a weak person, because I feel like I can't make more. I don't know how to make more. And again, unfortunately, these are just things that we're taught, that are ingrained in our being. So you discovering what those things are to you, it doesn't mean that they're going to be the same like they are for me, but they're there because of the way you grew up, the things that you saw, things people said to you. So understand like who you're hanging out with, right? So like if I hang out with a bunch of wealthy people, do you think I'm going to feel like crap because I don't have their wealth? Probably. It's not a bad thing, right? But it's just, again, a self-reflection. So if you're finding yourself, regardless of your upbringing, they're stirring emotions when it comes to money, there's something deeper there. That's why we do have to pull that layer back and find out what that is. And I always say, take it back to like your first experience with money, your relationship with your parents, and like their relationship with money. What did you see in the household? And once you start identifying that, you'll see that you're kind of mimicking those same things.
Hmm. Hmm. And to go back a little bit on the spending habit. So if you were, you talked about identifying your spending habits and then making small changes more from like a non like business perspective, but from a business perspective. So say you have a new business, like a lot of the listeners are building their business. So it's not like they are in this spot where they've been doing it for 10 years and their business is really thriving. It's the building stage. And so you're not making a ton, and feels like more is going out than you want to be. How do you, if someone was to do that with their business and they're looking at it, like for me, I look at all these $10 purchases so that I can have Canva and $10 purchase, like all these little easy $10
Yeah.
things. And you're like, crap, do I keep these? Like, are they really necessary? How do
Yeah.
you decide when it's like your business, what should be cut or how much you should be, I don't know, like,
Losing or yeah,
yeah.
I think I know what you mean. Sometimes in business it can be a little bit difficult because I mean, this goes personal too, but in business sometimes you make investments that might pan out or might not. And that's just the risk we have to take. It's, I can tell you how many times I've invested in like marketing or master classes or this, that, the other, right? And they might have not returned the best, rate of investment. Like I might have not seen something like super, grandiose out of it. But even still, you take what you can from it or the education that you can from it, especially in business. So, like you're saying, some of the smaller stuff, like the apps, those are so easy for us to get carried away with having apps. So I would always say reevaluate, always take a look at what you're paying for. Like I said, when I look at my P&L, I literally look at line by line, at category by category. How much did I spend last month? How much did I spend this month? There's, like I said, fixed expenses and variable expenses. Know what your fixed expenses are. That is something that is going to help you because from there, now you know whether you can make a decision to invest in something or pay a little extra in something or, do away with something, right? Because, like you said, Canva, chances are you're probably using it quite often. I know I
Mm-hmm.
use it quite often, right? So then there's like what we call opportunity costs in accounting. It's like the opportunity to use it or what it's costing us versus the value that it's giving us or what we outweigh as far as is it a good cost to have even if you're losing a little bit or even if you're not getting as much, right? So something that I do believe a lot of us invest in, and this is personal or business, is we get excited about buying, some like some manual or something someone's selling, right? Like a
Mm-hmm.
course that we're going to go through. Then, but we don't commit to actually following through with the course
Mm-hmm.
or we don't complete the course. Trust me, I'm guilty of it as well, right? Because at the time we're like, oh, yes, this is exactly what I need. So just knowing that if you're not going to commit to actually like doing something or using something, all that stuff, like you need to, do away with it or cancel it or move it out of your way. So that's why I tell you that for me, even though I'm looking at my P&L and there's times where I'm just like, damn, like I should have just not bought that or like, that wasn't the best investment or, whatever. Sometimes I can be down on myself, but then I just think, okay, well, I learned, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
something else I learned. And now I know next time, slow down in my purchasing,
Right.
think through before I get happy and apply and buy something. So I think from a business standpoint, always be clear about what is a fixed expense for you and what is a variable expense, because cash flow is how much money in and how much money out is what's important to us as business owners. Because if you don't have the cash flow to pay yourself or to pay for your personal side and your business side, that can definitely affect and have a big weight on you as a business owner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Those were great tips. And I bet because all of those things, because when you're starting is not like especially with what a lot of the people I work with, they're either food bloggers or they're like photographers. And it's just these little things that if you're not paying attention to how many you've signed up for a month, then you like add it up. You're like, well,
Yeah.
there's $500 going out of my account every month and
Exactly.
reevaluating.
No, it does. It can add up. That's why we were saying about like small increments, because that's
Yeah.
what happens is like sometimes we think, because when we focus on the big number, then we think smaller things don't matter. And then, but we don't realize that the smaller things just turn into those incremental larger numbers. And so the
Mm-hmm.
same thing in business, you have to pay attention to what you're spending. You'd be surprised. Like for my tax clients, I have them fill out, I have a tax prep tool sheet and I tell them like you have to fill it out, and they'll be like, "Oh, well, I don't think I spent that much." I said, "Fill it out, go through your statements." I tell you'd be surprised. They're like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't realize how much I spent." Yep, that's
Mm-hmm.
exactly right. You don't realize because you just think, "Oh, an amount here, an amount there, an amount whatever." But once you add it all up, well, guess what? You're like over 10 grand in investments in your business or starting a business or doing whatever. So don't think that it doesn't count. It definitely does.
Right. Yeah. So what would be next? What would be the next step in making, like, to creating this freedom, no matter what somebody's making? Now that we've done the spending habits and the tracking, what would be the next step for them?
I think for me, I would just say, honestly, just, I don't know, get real with yourself about what you want out of this life. I know it sounds a little like you're like, oh my gosh, you're an accountant. How are you? But it's, it's just get real
It's
with what you
real.
really
You
want
know
out
what?
of
Like, don't be an accountant. Don't be like,
life. Yeah.
save to your blah, blah, blah. Like, this is a real answer.
Yeah, no, get real about what you want out of life, because the truth of the matter is that you only get this one. You only get this shot. So it's like, money, of course, is a big aspect of how we're able to live, but you know, you can only get stuck on one thing for so long. Like, what other excuse are you going to use for not going after what you truly desire or your dreams? Because I do find that people will get like, oh, once I make this amount, or once I pay this off, or if you find yourself constantly saying, once I get to this part, then I will, chances are you're just lying to yourself and you're holding
Mhm.
yourself back, because the truth of what you want seems either so big or so different or so, like, just out of norm, that you're afraid to say, what I really want is this. And that's that. It's
Mhm.
just,
Mhm.
unfortunately, as simple and as complex as get real with yourself about what you truly want out of your life, and what does that mean as far as freedom, as far as success. What does that really look like for you? Nobody else, for you. Not your parents, not what your spouse says, not even though, of course, respect your spouse, but what does it look like for you? And that's it.
Do you think there are any other priority financial goals someone should have, or do you think it should be very specific to
It has to be very
you?
specific to you, because
Mhm.
I hear this all the time. You should invest in real estate stuff. Okay. Or you should have assets. You should have this or that. Yes, I think you should have a retirement account, or you should plan for something like, invest in something like that. But having a real estate asset isn't for everyone. Not everybody wants to track and have an additional mortgage and have renters and have an Airbnb and figure out if something breaks that they have to fix it, because all of that takes capital, all of that takes money, all of that takes time. Not everybody is in that space to be able to do it. Can it be a great investment? Sure, it can. My mom owns a lot of properties, and trust me, I've seen her stressed out up the yang with it, but that's what she enjoys. That's what she wanted. And that's what she invested her money in. And it grew and it's been great. But she's also had a lot of situations that have been very difficult. Like, you have to replace the whole roof. You have to replace the whole plumbing. That's like $10,000. Not everybody's equipped for that.
Mhm.
The other thing I hear is, don't buy new cars because that's the worst investment. Is it the worst investment though? Because most Americans don't have $5,000. So if their car breaks down, they can get it fixed. So
Mhm.
is a new car a bad investment? No, not if it's keeping you safe, and not if it's taking you to work, and not if it's saving you on gas or potentially saving you on repairs. So you know what I mean? Whose mindset is that? Or you shouldn't
Right.
have any debt. You should be debt free. Why? Like,
Mhm.
having debt can be leveraged. Having debt sometimes means that you get to fix your car or do whatever. Like, there's an exchange there. So to me, I'm not one-sided on anything. I think it's all just, what is your goal? What do you want? What does it look like for you? Because if you're living for somebody else's thoughts or understanding or goals, or what they say to you, like that you should be debt free, then you're stressing yourself out because you're not debt free. You're
Mhm.
upset because you're not debt free, and that's what somebody told you, and that's what you should be, and you're not there, and that's why you're stressed out. If
Mhm.
if you bought a new car and everybody's saying like, why would you do that, or this stuff, why are you're upset because somebody else is telling you like that you made a bad investment? But why is it a bad investment? If it makes you happy, or if it serves its purpose, it's taking you from point A to point B, it's keeping you safe, you're saving. But what you know what I mean? Like, that's what I mean. It's
Mhm.
like there's no, unfortunately, there, it's not this or that. It's this and that, and you can make it whatever decision that you want in your life, whether it be wrong, whether it be good, whether it be bad. If you made bad financial decisions, all right, well, learn and move on and make
Mhm.
better decisions next time. And then at some point, again, you're just going to live your life the way you want to live it versus how somebody else is telling you. Because if what you want to hear from me is that you should be debt free, why do you want to hear that? Is that because that's
Mhm.
what you believe? Right? So that's what we listen to, the people that we agree with. So that's why I always say, like, it has to be personal. It has to be up to you. You have to decide, ask yourself that question. What is going to make
Yeah.
you truly be in appreciation, happy, uh, you know, in a good spot? What is that going to look like?
Yeah. And empowered. And I think because money, you said it earlier, and it is, money is such a taboo subject. Even my listeners, when we talk about mindset and we talk about limiting beliefs and we talk about how you've accumulated all these beliefs from crap that happened to you, we just don't think that even if you're familiar with money, like myths or money beliefs that you may be holding on to, you don't think about things like, oh, you shouldn't have debt, being something that's put onto you. Like, that's another thing that may not belong to you. Why do you believe that? Because everyone says, oh, well, why do they say it? Like, is it just been passed down from like the 1900s that you shouldn't have debt? Like, is that why we're saying that? Like, there could be a reason you should have it. Or so I love that you have that approach. And everything that applies, like I just keep doing this with my arms, but like breaking free from
Do
everything. Like,
that.
nobody can see
You
you.
have to.
Like, it includes money. It includes like all the shit that you have in your brain, all the beliefs, any thought that like, I can't do that. Well, why can't you do that? Is because you think you can, or because someone else said you can't.
Exactly. No, and I'm not going to tell you that it's not difficult. It is difficult to retrain your brain, retrain your mind, retrain your body, your
Right.
beliefs, your self, because we carry a lot of it in ourselves, within ourselves. And if you see, I don't know if you guys will see my hand motions, but I always say, we carry it in a certain spot in our body because you feel it. You feel that uncomfortableness. Like I said, when I take a look at my financials, and sometimes it's like not, it does make me feel a certain way, but I force myself to work through it because of the fact that I just know that it's like, if it's still there, if I'm still feeling these things, is because that still exists within me, and that's still a thing within me. So I have
Mm-hmm.
to work through these things. And allowing myself, not always going to the deep end and forcing myself, but sometimes I do have to force myself. And like you said, we don't realize how much there's such outer influence in our behaviors and the way we identify with money, or identify ourselves with either success or the way people see us, right? And we do care about what people think about us. And this is, times that I've uh, shared with people. I just say, like, look, you could see a home. You're right. Like, people say, oh, why are you renting? That's such a worst investment. Okay, again, if I were to buy a home in California, it costs like $1 million, number one. So, am I going to be stressed out about not being able to make my mortgage payment and constantly trying to make as much money as possible in order to pay that mortgage, which I didn't have enough of a down payment to have it be a lower amount? You get what I'm saying? People get themselves in these
Mm-hmm.
debt, like big debt situations, because having a home is the thing that you're supposed to do. Well, who the hell told you
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing that you're supposed to do? Right?
Mm-hmm.
I know that, yes, the American dream is owning a home, right? I know that because that's what I was taught, but that's not my necessary. It's not that it's not my dream. I want to own a home, but I also don't want to be stressed out about how much my mortgage is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that. And if something breaks in my home, I also don't want to be stressed out about fixing a roof or fixing a plumbing
Yeah.
or all that stuff, right? So there's that, right? And that's what I'm saying. Like, if you own your home, and you bought one and you're happy with it, and it's not causing you all of this excess stress, then that's great. Like, that's great. You invested in your first home and now you're paying, but people that maybe rent, they can go wherever the heck they want. And maybe that's what they prefer, right? So again, no right, no wrong.
I have like absolutely loved everything that you've had to say, and this has been a fantastic conversation. I feel like we could go on for hours, but is there anything else that you feel like we should like before we wrap up, that anyone should know as far as creating freedom and knowing that they can have freedom at it doesn't matter how much they're making, that you think it's important for them to know before we wrap up?
No, other than just, again, know what freedom and success means to you personally, not anybody else's opinion, just yourself, because that's
Mhm.
really the importance. And this is, your human experience is going to be based on that. And so if you're having a hard time and if you're feeling like you're not doing something right or things aren't going the right way, just know that, there's sometimes there's a reason behind it, either to change your course or to do something different or to cause you to expand, right? Align and expand.
Mhm.
um, but really that's what it comes down to. You have to look within yourself because the answer is there. So I know
Mhm.
that's not accountant-y, but
It was the perfect answer, I think.
but me as an accountant, and then also if you're going to go do your taxes, be sure, if you're, especially if you just started a business, track your stuff, please.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, where can everyone find you if they would like to like learn more about what you offer or just hang out with you a little bit more?
Yeah, they can find me on Instagram under Damari Gold, or our account TGS Accounting. Also at our website, tgsaccounting.com or damarigold.com.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time. It was fantastic talking to you.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Align and Expand podcast. If you're an iTunes listener and you loved this episode, please leave a review. And if you leave a review, send me a screenshot, and then I will be sending you a special exclusive meditation made only for my listeners who are so kind enough to take time out of their day to leave a review of the podcast.